So UFC Fight Night Seattle just ended a few hours ago. And for you guys today, I have the top takeaways from the event. So if you missed the event, all you need is this video, and it'll get you right back on track and understand everything that you needed to know for this card. Now, for our takeaways, I do have like 13 listed out for you. Now, it won't technically be like 13 individual ones. The prospect report will always be multiple tied into one, but it is a lot of information, and that is the bulk of the video. But, let's get right into these takeaways with our first one, which is always the overall card recap. This card was amazing. If you missed this card, I feel bad. This card is definitely worth going back and rewatching. Tons of finishes, tons of sick KOs. The main event ended kind of abruptly. Get to that in a second. But overall, this card was I would say, a solid 9.2. Only a few fights in the card that didn't really deliver, but I would say comfortably that every single fight on this card did end up being somewhat entertaining. Some better than others, but overall, this card was a pretty fun watch for the most part. And I think what made this card feel like really, really good, like the cherry on top of it, was the fact that the crowd in Seattle was pretty hot. Like they were pretty loud the entire time, especially like even the first fight of the night was pretty lit. I mean, the finish was amazing with Bukowski. We'll get to that in a second as well. But just they were already cheering. They were already pretty up and roaring as soon as the first bell rang to start the fight night. But yeah, overall, UFC Fight Night Seattle was a nice 9.2 on the Kendall grading scale. We move on to our second takeaway, which is the main event. The main event, right? I'll start with the top. I'll start with the basics of kind of how the fight went for the first 3 rounds. Now you might be asking me, only 3 rounds? It's supposed to be a 5-round fight. Yeah, it's fucking ridiculous. Cejudo, we'll get to in a minute, but basically in these first 3 rounds, we had Song Yadong pretty much, I would say, comfortably piecing up Cejudo. I thought he won all 3 rounds. Maybe you could give that second round to Cejudo. Towards the end of that second round, he was laying some good combinations and kind of going after Song Yadong, but I felt comfortably he won the first. His footwork was on point. He was dodging a lot of shots that came from Cejudo. He just was kind of just countering very, very well. Like Song Yadong looked the part in the first 3 rounds, or especially the first round. Cejudo also couldn't get any takedowns going. We saw Song Yadong stuff those almost immediately. And yeah, just in the second round, we saw him start off pretty strong, and then Cejudo kind of turned it up late at the end of the round and did some damage. But in the third round, this is where everything kind of goes to, I would say, shit. Because it's a pretty competitive third round to start out. And then Song Yadong eye pokes Henry Cejudo. Now, this is where kind of all hell breaks loose because Cejudo got eye poked, and it was a pretty bad eye poke. It was 2 fingers in both eyes, right down the middle. Pretty nasty eye poke. So, of course, they stopped the fight. Cejudo goes back to his corner, and he begins to start like milking this, like thoroughly milking this. And it got to a point where he's saying that he's fine. He's smiling. He's talking to the ref. He's talking to the doctor who came in, and he's saying he needs more time. He'll be okay. He'll get his eyesight back. And like 3 minutes go by, and we're like, okay, Cejudo, I think you should be good by now. Not really blinking at all. I keep that in mind. He's like wide-eyed, not really blinking. Every now and then he goes, like he wipes his eye and like blinks a little bit, but it felt like he was trying to milk this out. Like he was trying to get his breath back, because in that third round, it did seem like he was kind of, I wouldn't say slowing down, but it seemed like he was definitely getting more gassed than what Song Yadong was. So I think he was trying to milk the clock to get his breath back so he could have a better third round or a better fourth, fifth round. And it gets to the point where the doctor comes back in, and the doctor leaves. And then Cejudo is like telling Herzog, who's the ref, that he's fine, that he only needs just a little bit more time. And he's like, I'm ready to fight, whatever, I'm fine. And then he just randomly sits down and he starts laughing, and the crowd gets fucking angry, and they start getting into an uproar. And I'm like, okay, Cejudo's just definitely milking this, just like for content almost. It's what it felt like to me. He was laughing, he was smiling, he sat down. At one point he gets on all fours and looks into the crowd, and it just felt like he was milking it like tremendously. And then it gets to the point where the 5 minutes are up. Time's up. It's been 5 minutes. It's either you fight now or it's the fight stopped. Because if you don't know, if there's a foul, you only get 5 minutes to recover from that. And after that, it's like, okay, we've wasted too much time. time to get back to the fighting, or else you just can't go. So Herzog starts the fight again. It's the third round still. It's like a minute left in the round. And then Song Yudong, pretty much, he is fully recovered, and he's at this point angry. There was only a couple times where we saw the camera on Song Yudong, and he was visibly angry after like the fourth minute of Cejudo milking this. So he immediately just guns for Cejudo, and he lands a few good combinations. Cejudo doesn't throw much, or if anything at all, and just tries to avoid Song Yudong the entire time, who's actually like going after him. And then the round ends, and Cejudo gets back to his corner, and he immediately throws a hissy fit and starts yelling to his cornerman that, like, I can't see. I literally cannot see. There's two of him. It's blurry. And at that point, I'm like, it's over. He said he can't see. Those are the most taboo words once you get fouled. If you say I can't see after you get eye poked, the fight's going to get stopped. It always gets stopped immediately when the doctor is in. The moment you say I can't see, the fight's over. It's done. And not only was Cejudo saying he just couldn't see, he was screaming it. Like, he was legit screaming, I can't see. So of course Herzog is like, you can't see. Like, that's the fight. It's over. If you can't see and you're complaining this passionately about it, then the fight's going to be over. So Herzog's like, well, I don't want this to be a no contest. Let's just stop the fight and then score the scorecards. But it turns out, I guess there's some sort of rule where it has to go past or go into the fourth round. So Herzog has to actually start the fourth round, and then immediately stop it, and then they go to the scorecards. And so when all of this is happening, I'm thinking to myself, Cejudo is just not a warrior, dude. He's just not in it to win the fight. Like, what's going on? And I think he fucked up. I think he messed up. When he took his full 5 minutes, that is what makes him seem like he's just quitting on the stool, honestly. And it kind of felt that way. I'm not going to lie to you, because him just randomly going, I can't see, after the fight being stopped or after the round ended, it's like, Cejudo, like, you had the full 5 minutes to recover. If you couldn't see during those full 5 minutes, then what made you think it'd be any different once the round started back up again? And there was 4 or 5 different occasions where Herzog came up to him and saying, like, are you okay? Are you ready to go? Can you still fight? And during, like, at the 4-minute mark, or like almost like 4.5-minute mark, he wasn't mentioning that he couldn't see still. Like, he wasn't saying anything about that. So he suddenly just couldn't see when he got back to his corner, which I guess makes sense, as I was kind of bleeding in the very like close part near your nose, like right here. Like, his eye was kind of bleeding, like very slightly, like wasn't too noticeable. But I'm thinking, like, dude, like, you're low key kind of just quitting right now. It just felt like he didn't want to fight anymore. And that's kind of what I got from Cejudo. And now Song Yudong is upset because, he couldn't get his finish, or couldn't get his, like, quality win. There will always be some asterisks on this win now because of that. And honestly, where Cejudo messed up at is that once he got eye poked, he just kind of stood there and then shook it off and like walked back. He should have started crying immediately. He should have like fell to his knees and started screaming that he couldn't see, and just went to a fetal position and act like he just got shot. Like, that was what Cejudo should have done, instead of like walking back to his corner and being all like, oh, I'm fine, I'll be good, I'm fine, I'll be good. And then once the round ends, he wants to act all like, oh man, I really can't see. That's where I think Cejudo messed up at. To me, it feels like he quit, man. Like, I'm not like entirely sure, obviously, because I'm not Henry Cejudo. His eye, it was a nasty eye poke. His eye was slightly bleeding, so maybe he couldn't see. Maybe things were kind of blurry, but I felt like if he couldn't see during those full 5 minutes that he had literally to sit there and recover, what made him think it would be any different once the round started back up again? And so to me, that just seems like he's just trying to find a way out, and he found his way out. But luckily, Herzog still scored the fight, and Song Yudong wins. He wins unanimously. I think 2 judges had it 29-28, and 1 judge had it 30-27. So I think it was a pretty fair scorecard. I thought those were all correct. My opinion, I had it 30-27 going into that 4th round. So I thought no matter what, Song Yudong was going to win, because he had the full 5 minutes to recover too. Like, Song Yudong was kind of not having so much success in that 2nd and 3rd round, but it was pretty evident to me that when both these guys are fresh, Song Yudong is the better fighter. So if he was going to be fresh going into the 4th and 5th round, I think he would have carried on to win. So that's the whole take with the main event. Ends very abruptly, ends very unsatisfyingly. It sucks, but Cejudo found his way out, I guess. I don't know. Not entirely sure about that take, but it is what it is. Let me know what your take is in the comment section down below. But we move on to our nice and cozy weekly prospect report. Now, if you don't know what the prospect report is, basically what I do is I take every unranked fighter that hasn't been ranked before and is either making their debut or has a few fights in the UFC, not a veteran of any sorts, just the guys who have been recently signed to the UFC and recently are on a run. And I put them in a spreadsheet. I give them a grade based on their last 3 fights. If they end up having 4 or more fights, then we use the change category over to the very far right to assess whether they moved up or down since their last fight. Also, if you do get ranked, then you're off the prospect report. Also, if you fall below 70, then you will not qualify for the top 25. So I do have a top 25 list as well, which I will show in just a minute after I get through this event's prospects, which I have 25 listed prospects, and the 25 best prospects in the UFC, according to me, will be on that list. But getting on to this event, we had a lot of fighters today, and I wanted to incorporate more and talk about every single fighter who could be a prospect. As you can see, only a good handful of prospects made it onto this list or didn't get an F grade. But of course, as you can see at the number 1 spot, we have Gene Silva. Gene Silva went out today and he put on a fucking performance, man. He went out there, and I was genuinely worried for him. I thought he actually would probably have a really tough time versus Melsik Bagdasaryan, but he went out there and had fun, felt loose. I think there was only like one combination that Bagdasaryan landed, and then after that, he just fucking lands a nice left hook, right hand down the pipe, and just drops Bagdasaryan bad. He wanted to get a walk-off KO, but Bagdasaryan was still kind of there. So then it only took a few more follow-up shots, and then that was it. Gene Silva, another awesome performance with not much, adversity to it. He wasn't very active in the first round, but it took just one punch to win the fight for him. So another good grade for him. He's on his way towards being like a really, really tough or really good ranked contender who could fight for a belt later on in his career. Topuria, you're ducking him, man. That's why Topuria left the division, because he was worried about Gene Silva coming up. So Gene Silva, again, right now, I think I can comfortably say that he is the best prospect in the UFC right now. I think he genuinely is, dude. He is a different kind of animal. And with him being at Fighting Nerds Gym, that gym still continues to impress me with how much talent they have right now in the UFC. Almost every single prospect from Fighting Nerds is on a run right now towards the ranking or is already ranked. So, I mean, great gym. They're on their way up for sure. And they're kind of already arrived. Like, Fighting Nerds Gym has arrived right now. But moving on from Gene Silva, we also had Austin Vanderford, who is what's her name? Is Paige Van Zant's boyfriend. He made his debut today. Fought at Bellator. Not really a crazy prospect. I don't think he will go on to be amazing in the division, but he dominated Nikolai Vretnikov, who I now will be referring to as Saltynikov because he was really, really salty after he lost. So he gets a bad grade as well, but Vanderford pretty much dominated. Some little bit of some iffy moments on the feet early, but then he took him down and then dominated. Got a TKO in the second round. It was just all gas, no breaks for Austin Vanderford. An easy win for him. Gets a good grade. Only one fight in the UFC so far, so his data is a bit undersampled. So in the future, I do expect him to go down on the prospect report, but as of right now, with only one fight in the UFC, gets a 95. He will be regarded as one of the top prospects if he does continue to keep on winning. But as I said before, I do expect it to go down a bit once he fights more. Then we had Mansur Abdul Malik, not Malik, like I've been saying. He fought Nick Klein today in a very, very iffy performance. Nick Klein actually had some success in the first round where he actually did rock him at one point with a spinning back fist. But other than that, that was pretty much all the success that Nick Klein had. He had some grappling moments, but he couldn't get a takedown. I think Abdul Malik's takedowns defense is just elite. He was easily shucking off Nick Klein. It was like very simple to him. But in that first round, he was very inactive, didn't do much, and then got rocked and then clinched up. So Nick Klein fumbled the finish. If he didn't go for a takedown or clinch against the cage once he rocked him, he probably could have finished him because he had him wobbling for a second. But Nick Klein said in my prediction video or my prediction live stream that he isn't that good. And I think his IQ showed that today, and why I was correct in picking the biggest odds-on favorite in a very, very long time, or for the past like at least 6 months. So yeah, Abdul Malik, I am worried about him going forward. needs to be a bit more active. He's too insanely calm. Like he needs to add some more emotion to his fight game because since he's so calm, he allows for people to do what they want to him. And I can see like a guy who's fighting on the back foot kind of out touch him or out tap him or just be on the back foot and I'll strike him as a fight goes on. So if he gets more output, I think he'll be fine. But obviously, kind of an iffy performance versus Nick Klein. Ibo Aslan got slept today, got choked out, actually, not slept. Went out, tried to bang with Kutalaba, couldn't bang with the Hulk. And then eventually he gets subbed with an arm triangle. It seemed like he was getting the better of the striking exchanges versus Kutalaba. Kutalaba was definitely more hurt by Aslan's punches, but it's light heavyweight. Another prospect dead because these guys don't know how to have more than one round of cardio. It was pretty evident that Aslan was gassed after the first few exchanges, and then all it took was just one good double leg from young Kutalaba to get him down, get the arm triangle locked in, and submit him. So Aslan, kind of disappointing. Obviously, his last two fights against Anton Turkali and Rafael Sequeira were really good performances, but this one definitely brought him down a lot against Kutalaba. Got finished in the first round. Never a good look. Brings him down to an 83 overall for his last three fights. That does mean he loses 12 points in the overall grade, which now puts him down at an 83 overall for just an overall prospect. Still some hope for him. I think he will go on to be successful in the UFC. Just he caught the wrong guy at the wrong time. So yeah, Ibo Aslan loses. Melquizael Costa had a good win. Still not truly sold on him as a prospect, but he beat Andre Philly by guillotine. Andre Philly, what the fuck are you doing, man? I ain't gonna lie, man. That guillotine, there was like, what, 3 or 4, 5 seconds left in the round, and then he taps to a guillotine it's locked in, but it's not super tight yet. Like, just don't tap the guillotines, man. Odds are you won't go out, and if you do go out, then you do go out. But it's an arm and guillotine. The success rate on those submissions are just so incredibly low. And with only having a few seconds left in the round, there's just no point in tapping, but he decided to tap anyway. So Andre Philly disappoints me. But good win from Melquizael Costa. Gave him a 98. That might not be accurate for a 98. I mean, he was on the back foot because I think it's happened in the first round or second round, but he was kind of piecing up Andre Philly on the feet as well. He landed a few good kicks and a few good combinations. He looked pretty decent on the feet as well and then submitted him. So I guess a 98 is kind of deserved for Melquizael Costa for this fight. Just kind of overall dominated Andre Philly. So yeah, Rustaboev, obviously that Joaquin Buckley fight brings him down a lot, but he goes out there and he beats Eric McConico. Kind of feels bad for Eric McConico because he had this whole storyline going in. He lost his job. He needs to get a win. He's in the UFC. His wife is proud of him. His wife is surprised of him for getting into the UFC. And he goes out there and he gets TKO'd in the second round against Rustaboev. So it's tough for him. Kind of a sad story. Rustaboev, yeah, he won by TKO finish, but it seemed like he was being very inactive in that first round. I don't like when fighters are inactive and not throwing any strikes in the first round. It just speaks that they're very nervous and whatever. Gets a 92 though. Got to finish. Dominated is what it is. Rustaboev is back on the win column and back as a prospect. Gene Matsumoto, I actually gave him a good grade versus Rob Font because he went to a split decision versus Rob Font. And I think that even in 2025 is still very, very impressive. Rob Font is a great striker. Now his grappling defense can be iffy at times. We've seen it before against Corey Sandhagen and others. But I think for a guy, Gene Matsumoto, who is young and who is unranked, only has like 2 fights in the UFC, to get Rob Font in your third fight and to take him to a split decision, I think is massively impressive, where he almost arguably could win. I thought he lost that fight, but he almost arguably could win that fight. So I went ahead and gave him an 80 for that because I think just level of comp that he faced in Rob Font and for him to still lose and have a good showing is worthy of a good performance grade for him. But everybody else on this list, like Nick Klein, obviously he did lose to Abdul Malik. It's a low grade, it's an F, not going to be a prospect. Julius Walker, here's another one that we didn't mention. This guy, it was on 10 days notice. I'll say this, but him and Alonzo Minifield were gassed after the first round. It was kind of embarrassing. I know on 10 days notice. However, even on short notice, you should not ever be gassing after the first round. He couldn't get any takedowns, Julius Walker. Doesn't make any sense to me why he's getting a ranked opponent. Why is he getting Alonzo Minifield in his UFC debut? He has 6 professional fights. He's 6-0, and he's not even in a good promotion like a Ryzen or a One Championship where he can just seamlessly move over and fight a ranked opponent and deserve it. He's just a simple 6-0 prospect getting a ranked Alonzo Minifield in his UFC debut, and then he goes out there and can't get a single fucking takedown. Not a single one. He shot at least like probably over 10 takedowns in this fight, couldn't get a single one, and then loses by split decision. So overall, not a terrible showing from Julius Walker for his UFC debut. A tough opponent, but the UFC should do better and not give a guy making his UFC debut at number 15 ranked. I don't care if it's on short notice. I don't care if somebody backs out. Just reschedule the fight or get somebody else who's at least somewhat deserving of fighting the number 15th ranked guy at light heavyweight. So yeah, Julius Walker, sucks for him. It's his debut. I do expect him to move up eventually because he's a light heavyweight and he's a grappler. They typically do well when you're up in the heavier weight classes and you're also a grappler. But going to Javid Basharat, he got slept awfully. Like, awfully bad by Ricky Simon. I mean, it was the Usman KO against Masvidal. He led with the left hook to swipe the hands and shot that straight right down the pipe on Basharat's chin, spun his head around completely and slept him out cold with one punch. No follow-up shots really needed, but then I think Ricky Simon added a couple in there just for good measure. But yeah, Basharat as a prospect, kind of cooked now. I mean, he just lost to Amon Zahabi, which is an iffy look. He is ranked now, though. And then Ricky Simon, who's on a skid as well, sleeps him in the first round. Kind of tough for Javid Basharat. There's not much really to say about him besides start winning, little bro. Get some dubs, man. And otherwise, you're just going to keep falling down lower and lower on the list. I think he is truly talented, man. It just is like, he's not winning. He's just not winning. And it sucks because he's fighting better competition and losing now. So maybe Fareed's the better brother. We'll see down the line, but I don't know. Basharat's kind of cooked right now. And then the last one we do have Rafael Cerqueira. This guy is going to get cut. Like, he needs to get cut. He is not good whatsoever. Against Ibo Aslan, he just gave up. He did. He just gave up completely. Then he fought Bukauskas today, who is not known for his power. Literally, Modestas Bukaki is not known for having any power whatsoever, more of a technical kind of guy, and just kind of wears on you as the fight goes. But getting slept by him out cold is a very, very bad look for Cerqueira. Yeah, get him out. He's done. I don't want to see him anymore. He needs to go somewhere else and have fun somewhere else. But that is the whole event card. That's every single prospect on there. A lot of prospects today. This might be the whole video, honestly. It's just like me talking about the main event and then the prospect report, because that was the whole card, was prospects for the most part. Guys making their debut, guys who are unranked. So yeah, I might have to adjust this later on the line, not include guys who I guess lose like this, or who incorporate other, like, I guess, veterans who aren't prospects technically. But yeah, but our top 25. Now, on the very far left, you see some blue numbers. Those are the people who are from this event who got into the top 25. So Gene Silva, of course, he is a demon, a beast, number 1 still. Austin Vanderford, number 4 here. Again, him and Jacoby Smith and Jose Delgado. I do expect them to eventually kind of move down the list as they continue to get more fights in the UFC. But as of right now, the sample size isn't enough, so they get kind of weighted up higher because they only have 1 fight in the UFC. Abdul Malik up there at number 13. Yeah, just I do think he'll go up higher as he continues to fight. I think his talent is really there, but just that Nick Klein fight brought him down. At Ibo Aslan, of course, Costa 19, Rosaboev at 23, 25, Gene Matsumoto, who dropped out. Nazem Sadikov, the fraud himself, dropped out. Navajo Sterling, who had that really, really weird UFC debut, dropped out. Thimba Garimbo, sorry, man. You're gone. You're out of here. Amdi Abdul Wahab, no. He's out of the top 25 as well. And then so is Rinny Nakamura, who probably can get back in with another good win. So, yeah, this is your whole complete prospect report. If you guys want to pause it or zoom in at all, you can look at it. But overall, just, yeah, it's now getting to the point where the sample size is enough, where we have enough good prospects so far that just a C plus prospect will not make the report anymore. You need to be a B or a B plus prospect to even be considered after maybe a few more fight nights and events. So yeah, we're getting more competitive with this. The top 25 is looking pretty strong, and it will only get stronger as I keep adding more prospects every single fight night card. But that is our entire prospect report. We move on to Brendan Allen complaining while not trying to scramble. So we did have a co-main event today that I forgot to mention. It was Brendan Allen versus Anthony Hernandez, and Hernandez pretty much did exactly what I said he was going to do and just be more active and more busy in the scrambling or in the grappling situations. Brendan Allen, at one point in the third round, it was 1-1 because in the first round, Brendan Allen went out there, got taken down and controlled, but eventually reversed position and landed a lot of ground and pound and elbows and damage. And it just overall, he won that round based on damage. Now, Hernandez probably had more control time in that round, but he didn't do enough damage to kind of counteract what Brendan Allen did to him later. Second round, it was pretty much all Anthony Hernandez. He took down Allen early in that round and pretty much stayed on top for the entirety of that round. Didn't really do much, doing his normal thing, pulling guillotines every now and then, kind of get the back, holding the body lock against the cage, knee in the thigh, just doing Hernandez things. In the third round, it's kind of the same thing as the second round. We see Hernandez doing the same old. But at one point in this third round, we see Brendan Allen all fours trying to, I guess, stuff a takedown. And he's just like shaking his hand, like he's like complaining to the ref or whatever, complaining to like the crowd or whatever. And I'm like, dude, you have not tried to scramble once so far and you're already complaining about him kneeing your thigh. Try to scramble first. If you don't get out of it and he holds his body lock and does nothing with it, then you can start crying about it. But at this point, you haven't even attempted to scramble and you're already crying and whatever. So Brendan Allen, to me, just maybe he does lack the IQ to continue to do things. I don't know. He just got out grappled by Anthony Hernandez, man, pretty much. I mean, Hernandez went out there and just did what he normally does and takes you down and just wears you out and just pulls guillotines and gets your back and events his position and scrambles, and he's good. He's good. On the feet, though, some trouble because Brendan Allen had some success, especially in the first round, landed a nice clean flush head kick on Anthony Hernandez. So I am worried in the future if anybody does stuff his takedowns because somebody will sleep him at some point. But as long as he can keep his takedowns going and morab his way up the division, then I think he'll be fine. Eventually, I think he will fight for a title. I'm not going to lie to you. I think he is that good because his style is just so... It's so hard to beat the style in the UFC. Finding a guy who has incredible cardio, who can just spam takedowns, and when he does take you down, he'll never gas out. It's just fucking tough, dude. It's hard to beat a guy like that. So unless you can sleep them early or have better grappling than them, you're just not going to beat a fighter who's like a Anthony Hernandez ever in the UFC, unless you just have the perfect style to do so. So yeah, unfortunately, that is like kind of the whole card. I kind of went through everything on the card. I didn't realize the prospect report was going to be such a big part of the video, but it is because all we had was prospects for this card. So yeah, I guess technically only 3 takeaways, but I have 13 listed. So I don't know. I'm sorry. So yeah, that's your recap for today. I'm sorry. I guess I'll adjust this in the future to where I can get more overall, I guess, takes in or more takeaways in. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, block notifications, but I'll see y'all later. Peace.